It is day 7 of Hercules week, the last day, which means we only have one last thing to do. But before we get to that, I really feel like we need to look at the team as a whole, because I think this is really where you see where your money goes. One of the things I didn't get to talk about individually on these is how much they really suit each other. I mean, you can see how the aesthetics changed as they developed them and as they produced more. But still, the far simpler X-Graver still looks right at home beside the more detailed Dr. Crank and Neckbreaker. And because of those different aesthetic jobs, they actually have a lot of variety to them, despite all being lime green robots with purple detailings and gunmetal gray and silver paint apps. After this week, I am not using the words gunmetal gray for months. The other thing I didn't talk about was interconnectivity. All of their weapons can combine with each other in a myriad of different ways. They can all use each other's weapons, so all of them can be decked out. Pretty much any of them can be turned into their own personal death truck with nothing more than Mad Blender's drum. And in a couple cases, like X-Graver's shovel arm and Dr. Crank's big crane arm, you can actually switch them. Another thing I didn't get to mention is size. All of them are Voyager scale transformers, and that really does make a difference because these robots, especially in vehicle mode, feel like they should be really, really huge. And it works. Now, before we continue, I will eat crow a little bit and admit I did get part of Neckbreaker very wrong. That hinge in the back really can move that last click in order to fully lock in his treads. But that click is so hard to get, I could have sworn I was going to break him every time I tried. And while it feels okay now that it's finally in that position, it really should not have been that tight. But as you can see, it doesn't solve all the other gap issues. So while my opinion of him has gone up quite a bit, he's still probably the lesser of the batch. But something I've found about these toys is that they are so evenly marked. All of them are very superb toys. All of them are very well constructed and designed. All of them look great in both modes. And something I've found about these is that it seems like all of them are somebody's favorite. Like, I know people who love Dr. Crank for his crane arm and how many things he can do in vehicle mode. I know people who really like X-Graver for his Cybertron and Energon era aesthetics. I know people who love Structor for his classic style aesthetics. I know people who really, really love Mad Blender for all the weaponry he comes with. I know people who love Heavy Labor because of how big and beefy he looks in robot mode. And yes, I even know people whose favorite is Neckbreaker, mostly because of the versatility and alternate leg transformations he features. But I know the big thing a lot of you are thinking about, and it's been the elephant in the room this entire week. Price. Yeah, see, the myth behind these things is that they run you $600 before shipping, $100 a piece for these guys. Don't buy into it. This set, after shipping, cost me a grand total of $525. That is with me going through 3 eBay sellers to do it, and 2 of the shipments were EMS. If I had gone cheap shipping, or if I had found them all from the same seller, I probably could have cleared under $500 on this set. And nowadays, I've seen bundle deals, and I've seen them on sale at places like Big Bad Toy Store, where you can get them for even less than that. While there's no denying this is a really expensive set, the most expensive project a third-party group has ever attempted, it's not nearly as bad as the rumors would have you believe. And remember, this is third-party world we're talking about, where a legend-sized toy costs you $30. That's just how it goes, and in those standards, it's about right. True, you might get the exact same satisfaction as something you'd find at a normal Walmart or Target, but there are hundreds of thousands of those floating around. These are special. And with that, I think it's time we stop stalling. Let's do it. Okay guys, from here on out, you will forgive me because this is going to be something of a struggle. This thing is freaking enormous, and just to get this much into camera, I am way far away from it, so it might be tricky to get everything in shot. I apologize if it's a little bit out of frame here and there. But, yeah, here you go. This is the combined form of Hercules. And it is absolutely astonishing. Really, your little YouTube window does not do this thing justice. I mean, if you can see this thing in person, anywhere, anything, if it's at a con you're going to, if you've got a friend who owns one, you owe it to yourself to find it and really behold this thing, because it's absolutely amazing. The main detail, of course, is the head. Let's see if I can actually get this thing. As you can see, they put a ton of detail into it. He has many head things. At least that one I can identify as your traditional crest. And then you've got 6 lights on the sides, I assume representing the 6 components that went to create the whole. And of course, it's all light piped. Glorious, glorious light piping. The only thing I really complained about on the face is that paint is a little heavy and it's muddling his mouth. You can actually probably make out the lip better than you can the actual crevice of the mouth. That's a bit of a setback, but it's still a really nice looking head. A lot of nice sculpting going into it. I'm going to tour this guy a piece at a time, starting with X-Graver, who formed the right arm. You can see the tread detailing is now making up a bit of the forearm paint. Very nice. And a lot of the top detailing is better exposed here. Now, if I had a working arm, then this could actually fold over and cover the exposed head on the other side. Here, he's just kind of staring at Hercules oddly. If the arm was fully working, I could fold that bucket over and completely hide the head. You can see Dr. Crank made up the middle. His arm is hanging off huge on the back, and thankfully, of course, it is removable. That part does make him considerably back heavy. So if you have a few balance issues with Hercules, better to take that off. And there you see Neckbreaker. Honestly, he's a little bit broken up. I mean, especially, I'm going to show it to you again, is where his head is visible in the side here. I've chosen to adjust the positioning of that head, otherwise he'd be staring at Hercules too, and it'd look a little odd. I also don't like that they don't really give you anything to do with this. I mean, it kind of rests there, but officially it's supposed to be like here, and it doesn't look that good. I don't know, I think I just really prefer how solid X-Graver looks in that arm, and really, releasing X-Graver first was the best marketing decision they made, because the first thing you did was put him into that arm mode just to get an idea of how big this guy would get, and it is probably the cleanest of the limbs on the toy, so it was an incredibly smart pick. Moving down, we can see the front of Heavy Load did make up the midsection, and the detailing actually works very well there to create Hercules' belly. And yes, we know what other part he forms. He's been the butt of jokes all week. Moving down to the legs, we can see Mad Blender forming the left leg. Very clean, not really a whole lot to say there. And the same I could actually say for Structor, though him I kind of question because he uses those arms just kind of folded up as heel spurs. He stands fine though. Yeah, he's a little back heavy, but you can work on that. And for those who asked all week, yes, the weaponry does all combine together. And it's actually a pretty clever system. There are actually so many holes and pegs on these things that you can pretty much combine them into any type of weapon you want. While there is one specific official way that these do combine into Hercules' rifle, there's so many different combinations you have available to you. Now this is the final completed gun. You can see that fin from Mad Blender's oddly shaped weapon forms the handle that Hercules can hang on to. It is a really big, imposing hand cannon of sorts. Really, really digging it. And of course, the red ones can do it too. Now, for those who are asking, no, there's really no reason for the red ones. The weapon itself fits in both hands the same way. You'll find little holes lined on the inside of his palms that connect onto that peg. The middle one generally works the best, so just stick with that. And since all the joints are very well articulated, you can actually move all of them very naturally across the toy. You can use that little peg at the end for a trigger if you want. Actually, looks a little bit goofy. Let's fold it under. There we go. And honestly say, kind of looks a little small for him. Of course, that might just be the effect of the toy. Anything looks small in his hand. So maybe it's a good thing he came with two. Feel free to experiment. Create your own gigantic blaster that properly suits this king of third-party toys. And I would be amiss if I didn't mention he is rock solid. Yeah, nothing going anywhere on him. Articulation-wise, starting at the top, he does have a ball-jointed neck. You can look up, you can look, well, most of the way around, at least as far as he can look. Yeah, a little stupid looking that way, but again, removable. Arms, fully rotating, very solid joint holding that in there, forming the articulation. A little bit outward, but it has to be in the right position for it. Otherwise, parts are going to start getting in the way. It can move somewhat, though. Also, elbows, they fully rotate, and you get a decent bend to them. Not quite 90 degrees, but not anything I could complain about. The hand is actually the most impressive part. Not only do you have the swivel there and the rotation, thumb is on a ball joint, all 4 fingers are hinged, and all of them have 1 knuckle. That is a ton of articulation in a single hand, and both of them have it, by the way. All this articulation I'm demonstrating now can be said for a neck breaker as well. You have a waist joint, and while it's a little bit restricted because of his back parts, you can get enough to where you can form some nice poses with him. The hips are the exact same from heavy labor, so they are very tight and universal in positioning. You've got knees as well. This is a universal problem I've found on this. Yeah, a lot of people have this loose knee on Mad Blender. It's another thing I hope they fix in subsequent re-releases. It's just kind of an issue, though I haven't really had anything that caused major problems so far. And of course, you probably noticed by now, he has ankle tilt. Oh, the giant with ankle tilt, and considering they have full robot modes that aren't hindered by it, that's probably the detail that amazes me the most. Huge amount of articulation in this guy. Appropriately so, especially at a time when your large-scale Transformers seem to skip out on the articulation a lot. It did not used to be that way, though. For a long time, we had supreme-sized Transformers that had just as much articulation. The last one I can remember? Cybertron Primus. And take a look at that. Hercules is as big as Primus. You can actually see where I kept calling these guys Cybertron in aesthetic style. This is where it really comes through, because he's no slouch in details. And he does look pretty good beside Primus. I mean, he's an absolutely epic display piece all the way around. In fact, I think he pulls off the look a lot cleaner than some other official products I could name, like this official Transformer, which has absolutely nothing to... Yeah, who am I kidding? It's frickin' Devastator. Yeah, how much longer could I really keep that pretense up? You can see all the same vehicle modes are in the exact same spots, and a lot of it is used a little bit better. You can see Hercules' right leg is far more solidly constructed. And I actually really like what he did with the arm better. It looks better than just hanging out the side that way. Of course, there's a lot more technology and engineering going into Hercules than, G1 Devastator from the 80s. It's really unfair to compare them. But you can see that while the individual robot modes really did try to do their own thing and didn't look quite like the originals outside of Structor, on Hercules, yeah, screw it. They went straight for Devastator and they pretty much nailed it head on. Now, they are making an upgrade set for Hercules, and by that I mean TFC Toys is making an upgrade set for their own set of figures. It's supposed to make it look a little bit more like this, with the solid forearms and allowing you to keep the treads up by the shoulders. But you know what? I honestly like how they handled Hercules better. I like that the green components go into green components. I like how solid it makes his chest look. I like using the treads as the forearms. It all feels like a very natural evolution of the original Devastator design. This is really how I would expect Hasbro to produce it if they were to produce the toy today. But of course, they can't. I mean, for today's market, you can't market 6 nearly identical toys at the same size, with the same colors, with similar vehicles, with similar robots, with no individual gimmicks because the budget has to go into combining them, and release them all at the same time. It would be an absolute nightmare. In fact, the last time they did it was just repainting the MicroMaster Constructicons from Japan. And guess what? They didn't do all that well over here. Even at $4 a pop, only sold at one store. They still didn't sell very well. Kids just aren't responsive to this kind of thing anymore, and collectors aren't going to keep Hasbro afloat by themselves. This is the kind of project I support for third parties. It's something Hasbro simply can't do, and it's something that only hardcore collectors are going to be after. Only a small private group can actually create something like this, and cater it to exactly what collectors want. And yes, even if it isn't $600, it is still massively expensive. But looking at just how incredible it is, how carefully engineered it was, looking how much work went into it, looking at the fact that it is so catered to exactly what collectors always dreamed of, I can honestly look at this guy and say, I don't regret spending what I did for him. That statement alone should tell you how quality this set is. But in the end, I know most who are watching are just going to live vicariously through videos like this. Fact is, it's just not a set that's affordable for most, even most collectors. The only reason I managed to afford it was by selling off about $400 worth of my own collection, and I sincerely thank everyone who purchased something from that sale to make it happen. I hope in some small way these videos this week have somehow repaid you a little bit for that generosity, because without you guys, this week wouldn't be possible, what I do wouldn't be possible. And as a collector who has always dreamed of modern Constructicons, this means the world to me that is standing in front of me right now. So to everyone, thank you so much. And to everyone who watched this week of videos wondering if the eventual re-releases are going to be up your alley, I hope I helped, because this is an enormous buying decision and you guys need as much opinion on this as you can get. No matter why you watched, I hope you enjoyed Hercules Week, and stay tuned because you know me lately. I can't stand downtime anymore. Who knows what's coming next?